and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reading Lily is Back again. This is part 2 of that story. Lily is Back part 2. At my college, there's a path connecting the downhill part of campus with the part built up on a high bluff. It winds gently uphill with a narrow, smelly slough on one side and a wooded hill on the other. It's a shortcut from the classroom buildings to some of the dorms and Greek housing. One of the students take, rather than climbing 5 flights of stairs into the library, and then walking several blocks through a residential neighborhood. But at night, the library is the more frequently used option. The popular rumor, at least when I was a student, was the slough path was haunted. The evidence was always pretty tenuous. Reports of ghosts throwing acorns at people's heads in the fall. The culprits were much more likely to be mischievous squirrels. Rustling in the woods, squirrels again, a creepy feeling while walking the path at night, because it was an unlit path through the woods maybe? Most students opted for the library route after dark. Not my group of Ouija-loving friends. We weren't afraid of the slough path, or at least we wouldn't have admitted to any fear. We walked it at night regularly, though you couldn't have paid me to go there alone after dark. It was a route for a group. Lily never said the slough path was haunted, exactly. Her words were, "Something lives there, and you don't want to mess around with it." But she maintained that if you were careful and respectful, it was no big deal to walk the path at any hour. One night, Lily and I were walking up the slough path, late, with our friend Christine. As we rounded the first bend, taking us away from the lights of the lower campus, Lily casually remarked, "It's pretty strong tonight. The thing that lives here. Don't be scared, don't wander off, and don't run." As if I would have wandered off, Christine and I drew close to Lily, forming a huddle as we walked, trying not to give in to the impulse to sprint. Because as soon as she said that, the creepy feeling started to grow stronger than ever. I don't know if it was just a reaction to Lily's warning, but I felt like eyes were on me as I walked the path, in a way I'd never felt before. Halfway up the path, a land bridge stretches across the slough, allowing the biology students who do field research in that small wetland to get to the other side and go further back into the woods. When we reached our land bridge, Lily stopped. Chris and I followed in suit. "This is where it lives," Lily said, looking up the hill with her back to the land bridge. "Up there. Look up and see if you can see anything. But don't tell me what you see. Not unless we get off the path." We all stood there for a minute, gazing up at the hill, and I started to see something as I focused upward. What I saw didn't make any sense, and I wasn't entirely sure my eyes weren't just playing tricks on me, but it resolved more and more as I stared. It wasn't terrifying, but it was unsettling, more so as it got brighter and burned itself into my mind. "Got it?" Lily asked, and Christine and I both jolted, as if we'd been in a mild daze. I guess I really had been in a daze, focusing on what I was seeing at the top of the hill. But I nodded. "Then let's go," Lily said, and started walking. We quickly followed, but we didn't run. The rest of our walk up to the dorms was uneventful, and the creepy feeling started to drop away the further we got from the land bridge. As we walked up the 3 shallow steps that marked the end of the path and the beginning of the dorm sidewalk, it was completely gone. Once we reached Lily's room and closed the door behind us, she sat down. "Okay, what did you see, Lena?" I told Lily and Chris what I had seen. I don't get why I had seen it, but I was sure of what it was. The outlines of 2 large circles, one next to the other, an electric blue light. The light was barely visible when I had first looked up the hill, but the more I focused, the clearer it got, until it was about the brightness of a shaded light bulb. Lily nodded and asked Chris what she had seen. "It was the same light Lena described," she said, "but no circles. I saw triangles. All 3 sides were equal length, and yeah, it got brighter the more I looked." Lily turned to her bookcase and pulled the hardcover book, bounded in faded cloth. It looked like the kind of thing you'd find in the farthest back stacks of the library, something that hadn't been checked out since 1950s. She rifled through the few pages and opened it up to show us a full-page illustration of a symbol, a triangle with 2 circles at its base, one circling each of its lower points. Our eyes grew wide, and Lily slammed the book shut. She shelved it again, and as she took her hand off of it, I saw its title for the first time. A Compendium of Demons. "So yeah," Lily said, turning from her bookshelf, "that's who's living on the hill. I've been seeing the full symbol for months, every time I walk up the path. But who is it? I asked. What is it? I was getting seriously freaked out at this point. A demon, obviously, she said. I'm not going to say its name out loud. You don't need to know. Christine and I just both stared at Lily with terror in our eyes. Saying its name would get its attention, she clarified. I'm pretty sure it's at least mostly dormant, and it doesn't know we can see it yet. And I'd like to keep it that way. Yeah, me too, Christine said. Maybe I can write down its name for you when we're off campus sometime, Lily said. When we're far away. Maybe over summer break? She didn't wait until summer break, as it turned out. About a month later, she and I took a Saturday road trip to a university town an hour away to shop at a vintage store she had discovered. When we were there, standing outside a coffee shop, she wrote a 3-letter word down on a scrap of paper, showed it to me, and took a lighter to it and watched it burn, only dropping it into the gutter when the flames licked onto her fingers. I'm not going to tell you the name. What's written here can't be burned. What happened a few days before the road trip might have been what convinced her to tell me. It was another late-night walk up the slough path. This time, Lily and I walked up with her boyfriend, Alex. I had been extra scared to walk the slough path in the weeks that followed our demon sighting, or whatever it was. I still walked it because it was just what my group of friends did, but I was always relieved to get to the end of the path. On this walk with Lily and Alex, though, I didn't start off scared. I had had a really good day. My crush sat down with me at dinner, and I had him all to myself for a full half hour. Plus, I had gotten a check in the mail from my parents. That meant I'd actually be able to afford to go out this upcoming weekend. I was happy and excited. Alex and Lily held hands as we walked. Lily and I were dissecting and analyzing the conversation I'd had with my crush, and Alex was laughing and rolling his eyes at us. It was a good walk, until we got to the land bridge. That's when Lily started acting weird, spacey. I wanted to speed up past the place where I'd seen those circles. I never looked up there anymore. You couldn't pay me to. But she kept slowing down, dawdling. She'd come almost to a stop, her hand slipping nearly out of Alex's as their arms stretched apart. Then Alex would grip her hand a little tighter and pull her along. She'd speed up briefly, but then start to lag behind again. The pattern kept repeating until Alex took her hand tightly enough to make her wince with pain and started dragging her toward the exit. I was close behind. Lily very much did not want to be dragged. She was pulling back on Alex's hand, trying to slow him down, but he was stronger and he prevailed. Ordinarily, I absolutely wouldn't condone a guy using that kind of force on his girlfriend, but we both knew it was necessary. When we got to the stairs, Alex walked up them first, still dragging Lily behind him. As her foot touched the first stair, I saw something. That electric blue light again, the same color as the circles on the hill, came crackling out of her hair. It was like static electricity, or tiny bolts of lightning, but pure blue and rising out of her head. Her hair lifted a little, didn't quite stand on end, but puffed up as the light danced away from her head. In a second it was gone. Her hair settled back around her shoulders, and Lily was walking normally again, no longer dawdling. We got to her room, and I told her about the light. That was when I stopped feeling it, she said. All the way up the path, I just kept thinking how nice it would be to just stay, to just let you guys go up on campus together and stay on that path. Maybe climb the hill, maybe lie down up there, or bury myself in the leaves. If Alex hadn't been holding on to me, she continued, I would have stayed. But when we reached the stairs, all those thoughts just floated out of my head, and I was back to thinking about your dinner with Jason. Then we took our road trip, and she showed me the demon's name, though it really didn't change anything. I was no more or less scared of the slough path. I just knew a little more about it. It was early spring by then, and the end of our freshman year was starting to loom. Ouija board and spooky stories didn't have as much weight in the warming days as they had in fall and winter, and without really internalizing it, I stopped thinking about the demon as much as the school year came to a close. But I still wouldn't look up the hill. Lily and I made plans to be roommates for our sophomore year. We signed up for a room together up campus and talked about the way we decorate it and what furniture we'd each bring. I was excited. I never really became friends with my freshman roommate, and it would be a lot of fun to live with somebody I actually wanted to hang out with. But Lily didn't come back for sophomore year. She lived several states away from me, too far to come visit over the summer. Though we talked on the phone a few times. Then she called me 3 days before the school year was going to start and told me she couldn't afford tuition. She was going to a community college in her hometown, she said, and maybe she'd be able to come back for junior year. That was the last time I ever talked to Lily. It was weird. As quickly as friendships could develop in those days, it could evaporate just as fast. When I got back to campus for my sophomore year, all my friends who were there were so much more real than Lily, hundreds of miles away. Nobody really had emailed back then, and calling or writing letters took work that neither one of us invested. I don't know anybody else who stayed in touch with her either. Alex said they tried to maintain a long-distance relationship as summer began, but she broke it off with him just before sophomore year started. And then she dropped off the face of the earth. I got into grad school in a city halfway across the country, and I moved a month after graduation. I loved my college and the town it was in, but it was time to go. I ended up staying in the city where I got my master's for years afterwards. I got a job, built a life. I didn't go back to my college town to visit. It was far away, and it was a piece of my past. I didn't even bother to go back for reunions. Who really needs them now that we all have social media? I did give some serious thought to going back to my 10th, but in the end there was too much going on at home and I didn't feel like priority. But a couple of years ago, I ended up back in that town for a conference, and I stayed for 2 days and a personal time after the event was over. I drove around, walked the campus and its paths, and fell in love with the area all over again. The river and its islands were as beautiful as I remembered, and the pace of life was slower and quieter than what I had gotten used to in the city. The cultural scene had built up in the small downtown and was thriving in a way it never had when I was at school a quarter of a century earlier. It seemed like a great place to live. I went home, but I couldn't stop thinking about that town. I started idly looking at job ads in the area, and then, a little over a year ago, I found an ad for what was actually the perfect job for me, right at the college where I did my undergrad. I applied, and the interview was the best I'd ever had it. Like everybody involved knew the job was basically meant for me. I got it, and I moved back. Working on my old college campus is weird sometimes. I'm a lot older than I was when I first fell in love with it. And the students currently falling in love with it look so heartbreakingly young. But it's a beautiful campus, and I still love walking around it, especially on the SLU path, which has been much improved since my college days. It's fully paved now. There are benches here and there along its length, and a few light posts. I like to park up campus and walk down the path to the buildings where I work. Then I walk back up to my car at the end of the day. I even walk it at night now. It's just another path through the woods, after all. I carry pepper spray in case of the kind of human attack that never seemed to cross our minds as something to fear when we were young. Oh, and I'm not afraid to look up the hill now. I do it every time I walk. Earlier this summer, there was a problem with one of the sewer pipes under the SLU, and the entire body of water drained, rushing the sewer and flooding some of the buildings at the base of the hill. It was strange to see it empty, to see how deep it really was, and to discover what artifacts of college life had been abandoned in its depths over the years. Some people were shocked that it happened, but those who had been around for longer remembered that it wasn't the first time the SLU had been drained, and they figured it would be the last. It had actually drained not so long ago, shortly before I started school there in 1991. I had no idea at the time. When I started school, it was full of water and totally normal. They always managed to fix it, and they did this year too. The water was back in the SLU about a week before the students arrived on campus for the new school year. But all wasn't right. I think something came back with the water. The first time I walked up to my car after the SLU was filled back up, late at night after working on my syllabus for the next school year, I glanced up the hill, like I always did. But this time, I saw the faintest dull glow. So I stared. It resolved itself into 2 circles, outlined in faint blue light. I wasn't scared. I kept looking up when I'd walk a path at night, and I kept seeing it. After about a week, the barest echo of a triangle started to appear with the circles. I'd never seen it before, but it became clearer as the days went by. That, honestly, scared me a little bit. Okay, it scared me a lot, but I keep looking, and it keeps getting clearer. It wasn't long before the symbol was much brighter than it had been all those years ago. I didn't know what that meant, but I was shocked that nobody else seemed to be seeing it, shining through the darkness. Or at least, they weren't talking about it. Maybe I was the only professor that walked the slough path. The only one stupid enough to take that route after dark, even when I knew it was a bad idea. But I kept taking the path, and I kept looking. When the students came back to campus, I manned a booth for the department of the orientation fair. The kind of thing that non-tenured professors get roped into doing. That's when I saw Lily for the first time. She was walking through the crowds of students, gravitating towards the Wicket Club's table. She wore one of those Diane von Furstenberg dresses, looking as crisp and bright as it had in 1991. I recognized the pattern. She was not 44 years old like me. She couldn't have been a day over 19. And I don't mean in the "she aged so well" way. She hadn't aged. Hadn't changed in the slightest. She was the exact same Lily I knew 26 years ago. So I would have assumed it was just a student who looked uncannily like her. Did assume it, in fact, at first. But the more I stared, the more I was sure. She didn't see me, and I wouldn't have known what to do if she did. What do you say to your long-lost friend who hasn't aged in 26 years? That was 3 weeks ago, and I've seen her a few more times since. Each time, I become more confident that it's her. I rummaged through a box of old photos one of those days, and I found one of her, staring directly at the camera with a small, bemused smile. I started carrying it around, and the next time I caught a glimpse of her, I pulled the photo out as soon as she walked out of sight and studied it closely. It was absolutely her, absolutely the same as the young woman I had seen walking past me in the quad, with no differences. Yesterday, she saw me for the first time. I was in the cafeteria getting lunch. I slid the tray down in line, grabbing a yogurt and a fruit cup. As I slid past the sandwich bar, my way was blocked by an employee cleaning up a spill. I looked up. It was Lily. She looked back at me, stared for a long moment, and recognition sparked in her eyes. Her mouth stretched into a wide grin as she prepared to say something to me. I didn't wait around to hear it. I left my tray where it was, dropped the spoon I held in my hand, and sprinted out of the cafeteria. I canceled my classes today. I haven't left my house since I drove home, well over the speed limit, after exiting the cafeteria yesterday. I'm afraid to go back on campus. I'm not sure how I can ever go back. Lily was wearing a necklace that I've never seen her wear back when she was younger. When I was young. She still was. The necklace was silver, with a small pendant. A triangle with 2 circles. Oh, I just got chill. So that was Lily is Back. I loved the story. It was so cool. It took me forever to find it, but I really, really like it now that I found it. And I hope you enjoyed it too. So if you want to see part 1, it's going to be down in the description. And the link to the story is also going to be in the description if you want to read it. And I'll see you next time.